Okay. All right. We are here. It is June 22nd, and this is the People Party of North Carolina state meeting. We are joined by Matthew Ho, and we are very excited. He's the Green Party candidate for U.S. Senate here in North Carolina, and got his is it campaign manager, Rose? Campaign manager as well with us here with Rose Roby. And so we're excited. So before we, dive too deep into, so here's the layout. The layout is we're going to get to know each other. We want to definitely introduce ourselves to you just so you can get to know us a little bit better because we're also kind of new on the scene here. And then we'll have some questions for you. But before I did that, I wanted to allow people to kind of go around, introduce themselves. Um, Basically, just share if you have if you're an officer, say what office you hold, and just what got you here. Um, and oh yeah, thank you, Stacy. And if you're not currently speaking, can you just put yourself on mute because this platform kind of has a thing with feedback here. So yeah, so we're excited. So I'll go first. My name is Aaron Mohammed. I serve as the interim treasurer here at the People's Party of North Carolina. I'm known online as Aaron Fights for the People. Everyone here very much fights for the people. So we are basically dedicated to providing a platform and a party for people who are fighting for the people of North Carolina. We work with other states who are doing similar things, other people's parties. We are not affiliated with the Movement for People's Party, the National Movement for People's Party. We're pretty much in our own lane, but we work but we work with folks from the UPA, which is a kind of like an umbrella group that essentially brings people together to either help states build parties or help provide kind of assistance or what have you. So I'll do a little bit more on that, but before I go too far, I wanted to kind of open it up for people. So I'm going to start with Scott, who's our interim chair. You're on mute, Scott.
Thank you, Aaron. And I'd like to say welcome, Matthew, and everybody tonight. I am the interim chair, and I got involved with this party pretty much at its inception. Bob Foxworth, that rascal, talked me into helping out with the party, and look at where I am now. So, thanks, Bob. But anyway, I've been politically active for a while. I was with the Kucinich campaign in 04 and 08, and of course the Bernie Sanders campaign in 2016 and 2020. And I just thought that this was really the one thing that we need in our country is political diversity, and we need more voices in the arena. So we welcome as a whole, we welcome the Greens and the Libertarians and the other parties to engage in the political discussion here with their own particular platforms. And but the People's Party, we want to give people a choice. We're tired of being hornswoggled into voting for least of two evils, lesser of two evils. And but anyway, so that's what I'm doing is working. I work with do the website and do a lot of the different graphics kind of things, techie kind of stuff. So that's kind of my background. But anyway, that's pretty much it for me. And someone else's turn.
You're
Stacey?
muted, Aaron.
Stacy, you can jump in.
Oh, okay, I'll jump in. I'm Stacy, and technically the assistant treasurer of PPNC, and politically I was involved in the Bernie campaign and then in Jill Stein's campaign, and former Green Party member. I lasted 18 months, And I'm really happy that I'm here forming a better alternative. That's it for me.
Thank you, Stacy. Maple?
You're muted, Maple.
Oh, she said 1 second. Bob? Can't hear Bob.
Is there any way, because I was
Oh, there you
muted,
go. There you are.
can we get the other people on the screen rather than being in a box by themselves together?
I'm not sure. Everyone's screen kind of looks different, I think. But go ahead and introduce yourself and your
I'm Bob Foxworth. I was here at the beginning of the North Carolina movement for having a people's party. And my wife, now deceased, was a major character, major player. She's a major character too, a major player in getting us connected with MPP, so we thought we were going to be a hub, a Greensboro hub, and then turned out they decided they wanted to go statewide, and so we hung in there through all of the sausage spoiling that Nick Branna did and does, and we finally cut ties with them, and very happy we made that move. My job is membership building, and I just kicked off a campaign. I also am a performer. I perform as Mark Twain and Albert Einstein, and I just kicked off with a performance in Black Mountain on the 12th of June. I'm going to be going around to any organization in the state that wishes to have a talk on the duopoly and what we need to do about it. I am prepared to do that, and I'll go anywhere at my expense. I'm asking folks in our group to connect me with organizations that they're a member of or that they know somebody in, and I'll go tell them that I'll tell them the truth about the political system here. I will say I was a lifelong Democrat, noticed the was, and I decided that I complained for 30 years, and then all I did was vote. And then I decided I was going to see if I could do something to reform these folks. And so I spent 2 terms as a local precinct chairman and on the whatever they call that state board where they find 19 more bodies that they can cajole into doing it, and decided that there was no way, and the Democrats are absolutely demoralized to the point that they can't even listen. So I decided I wanted to do something different, and then on the then the movement for a People's Party showed up, and two very prominent people that I think a lot of, Cornel West and Chris Hedges, were really enthusiastic about the possibility. So my wife and I decided we would join up. It took us a while to do that. So anyhow, I'm a membership chairman. I believe, and nobody's tried to contradict me yet, that we need millions of people in order to succeed, and we may not succeed even if we get millions of people because of the filthy, rotten system that we accept until we stop accepting it. And we may fail even with a couple of million, with a few million people, but we got to try. We got to do it. We got to do the best we can.
Thank you, Bob. Let's jump to Janet.
Hey, I was also part of the initial group that reached out to the Movement for People's Party. I mostly stay in the background, but I'm an enthusiastic supporter of this effort. And I guess my whole activism in politics has always been as a disruptor. So this is a particularly good disruption. I like it.
I want to add real quickly, Janet organized the Medicare for All caravan in Greensboro. And that's how I met Bob and his wife, Signe. And they basically recruited me on here. And when they heard my fired up speech, I was fired up. And you know, it's just funny how direct action can lead to collaboration, and collaborations can lead to one thing. And our hope is to continue that domino effect until we kind of disrupt the duopoly in the way that it's actually helping people. So Signe, I wish you could meet Signe Matthew, because she was a beautiful soul. She was a fiery soul. She was a fighter, and she pretty much brought us together. So
yeah.
This group is a reflection of her. So
I just wanted to add that Bob is a fantastic Mark Twain, and I'm sure he does great with Albert Einstein too.
Thank you, Janet. All right, we're gonna try to keep moving quickly here. Let's see, Mark.
My name's Mark Ortiz. I live in rural Kannapolis in Rowan County, and I am not an officer of the PPNC, but I have been informally advising them, helping them get through the legalities of incorporating, filing their statement of organization, and pretty soon probably pursuing ballot access. I'm a lifelong political activist ever since Vietnam. I'm 72 now. I got radicalized in 1966 when I saw a presentation to the Commonwealth Club by a former CBS reporter telling the truth about the fact that the country we were supposedly defending in Vietnam didn't have any legal existence. And that was when I figured out that my government routinely lied to me and had a policy of perpetual war that it's been pursuing ever since. And I have been involved in alternate politics. Basically, because of that, I saw through the Democratic Party as early as Lyndon Johnson, and I have had no illusions about them since. I was doing interviews with alternative party candidates on the radio in California as early as 1980. So I have a history of this. I also was involved with the creation of the North Carolina Green Party in 2002 and authored the bulk of its initial bylaws. Was its treasurer for a year and a half. So I'm somewhat conversant with the legalities of starting parties in North Carolina, and I've been trying to help these folks out with that. I also ran for Congress twice in Democratic primaries in 2004 and 2006 as a 9/11 Truth and Peace and Justice candidate. In those years, the Greens and the Libertarians, neither of them had ballot access. The Libertarians had petitioned their way to ballot access in 2004, but that meant they nominated by convention, and they didn't want me. I was too far left for them. I asked, and I had some support on their executive committee, but not quite enough. In any case, I have, like I said, I had no illusions about the Democratic Party at that point, but I thought somebody should speak out against the war, and that was why I did it, to affect the debate. So that's who I am.
Thank you, Mark.
Pleased to meet you.
As you can see, Mark is a bit of our secret weapon for us here. He's been so valuable in helping us navigate this very corrupt system. So, Maple?
Hi, I want to welcome you, Matt. I met you at the labor thing in Durham there, maybe 2 months ago now, and and then I didn't know who you were really, but these guys were talking about you a little bit. So then I've seen like all your videos. I'm so excited, and I want you to be in there so bad. Part of it, I think, is that here's our savior, like Bernie. Oh my, because we've all been so starved for decades, for 100 years. It's just so bad, right? But no, you are so smart. I love all your, all your answers, and I'm a disruptor, not a spoiler, but I have been getting some pushback from like older white area, old school neoliberal MSNBC watchers in a couple of my little groups. Well, Brian knows one. And so, oh my God, it's an attack, but that's in a way, okay, they're scared. They're sensing you could even maybe win, if people wake up and know who you are. Like, I would like to know more about how many Republicans would have voted for Bernie, especially here in North Carolina. I keep thinking that, but maybe they're getting nervous, so it makes me think more that you do have a chance. But yeah, we most of us have been around a bit, and I'm just so sick of the crap, and I'm just so glad you're here, and I'm looking forward to your answers to some of our semi-sophisticated questions, maybe compared to some groups. Thanks.
Well said, Maple. That's a lot of pressure, but we got this. All right, and then Brian, quickly, please.
Yeah. Good to see everybody again. My name is Brian. I'm a big fan of disrupting the duopoly, trying to make government work for the people. And so I spend my time organizing for the American Union, trying to leverage our power as swing voters to win us a better social contract. Thanks. Looking forward to hearing more from Matt.
Thank you so much. And so I'm excited to throw this over to you, Matt. I just think it's important that you kind of get a flavor of who we are and what we're about, because I know you've spoken with a lot of different groups and a lot of different people. And we kind of touched on it a little bit before, but one of the things that kind of differentiates us from a lot of groups is what our willingness to stand in solidarity with groups and collaborate. If it's a group or an organization that's advocating to help people, that's what we're about. Obviously here in North Carolina, but all over the country and overseas. And I think that's one of the things that stood out for us, hearing about you and your stance on an anti-imperialist stance, your anti-war stance. It really speaks to a lot of our feelings here. So what we did, we went out and we set out to build an infrastructure intentionally, grassroots here in North Carolina. We don't have any, international presence or anything like that. And I think that's one of the things that makes us a little bit different from some other groups. And our infrastructure here is we have a 527 to give people an alternative for electing candidates, but also we've created a 501c4, which is our ability to have a nonprofit so that it's a pressure group, but we have more ability to, let's say, endorse a candidate, for example. So I just think just knowing how we built it is important. And as you've heard, many of us have ties to the Green Party, have a lot of experience with the Green Party, and obviously work in solidarity with them. So I wanted to start off by asking you, Matt. So before I start asking you any questions, why don't you introduce yourself to us and just whatever opening thoughts you have and just reactions you have.
Yeah, sure. Rose, would you like to introduce yourself and then I can go?
Sure, I'll be quick. I think it's more important that they get to know you than me at the moment, but I will say that I've been in independent politics for over 30 years. And to me, there's a quote from Bonnie and Clyde: just because this is the car we came in on doesn't mean it's the one we need to leave in. So what I mean by that is, to me, it's not the label. I'm not a Green. I've been with the Green Party for getting on 10 years now, which is longer than many survive with the Green Party. But to me, it's that this is a party that we can use as a vehicle for ballot access, for some unity. And so I guess my point in that is that so is the Movement for a People's Party. So what we need is unity. And I'm very excited that you've been gracious enough to have us here today. And I think you're going to see what a very exciting candidate. I mean, I think some of you already have an idea of it, but I will tell you, I have been an independent candidate, in independent politics, working with independent candidates for 31 years of my life. And Matt is just by leaps and bounds the most exciting candidate that I've ever had the honor of working with. And somebody who I think can truly get through to the voters and connect with people in a way that I think could be something very special. So I'm so glad that you're interested in this, and I will turn the floor over to Matt. Thank you.
Thanks,
Awesome.
Rose.
Thank you.
And Brian, it's good to see you. I know I owe you an email. And then Maple and Janet, thank you both so much for your support for the campaign. It's really great. I really appreciate it, and it's a pleasure to meet you all. Aaron, I feel like we've interacted on Twitter because Aaron Fights for the People
Yeah.
sounds very familiar to me.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah. It's
Yeah.
kind of like Twitter. I've been on and off Twitter over the last 12 years or however long,
Yeah.
and I got back on it back in August or September because this was going to be happening. So I guess I got to get back on Twitter, and it reminds me in a sense that I don't know how many of your dog owners, but when you go to the dog park and you never know what the actual people's names are, but you know all the dogs' names, and it's kind of like, so we know each other kind of by what
Yeah.
our Twitter handle is, or, mine's Matthew P. Ho, not anything, but you tend to get people, oh, you're so-and-so, you're Spunky Banana 321, or whatever your name is, so it's nice to meet you all. Yeah, I won't say too much. I mean, we're running in terms of our platform, what we represent, I think meshes well with everyone here. We are pro-worker, pro-peace, pro-planet. We are for people over profit. All the catchphrases, all the sound bites, it filters into our much larger platform. Certainly, democracy reform is a big aspect for the campaign, particularly moving us to an independent multi-party democracy, not dominated by money. And then climate is another huge issue for us because if we don't do anything about the climate, none of this matters. And then falls into the Economic Bill of Rights, which is part of the Green New Deal for us, believing healthcare, education, housing, and jobs are human rights. And then, of course, our peace platform, a nonviolence platform, which, involves ending the wars overseas, ending the war on drugs, ending the crime against humanity that's happening on our border, down south. So, that's kind of the outline of our platform. If people have any questions or thoughts or anything, please, bring it up. I just want to reinforce what Rose said. And Rose is it's wonderful working with Rose for a host of reasons, but the fact that she's a cinephile and she's always throwing out these great movie references, and I hadn't heard the Bonnie and Clyde one before, and it really is, that's the case. Look, I don't bleed green. The Green Party asked me to run last year. I've been registered as a Green. First political party I ever joined in my life was as a Green in 2020, and that's it. And so my purposes are to enact change. My purposes are to put pressure on the political system. My purposes are to be a disruptor. I heard that word 3 times, probably even more. That's my purpose here. If the way to do that is to build it through the North Carolina Green Party and the Green Party US, that's the way it is. If it's not, there are other ways. We'll follow that path. I am very interested in working with as many people and organizations in North Carolina that share the same goals, particularly helping working families and protecting the planet. If those are your goals and it falls in there somehow, then I want you on the team. And as Rose said, labels, are just labels that they don't mean anything to me. If the Green Party is the vehicle we're traveling in right now, that's fantastic. If in 2 years, 4 years from now, 6 years from now, it's something else, so be it. The idea I have is, of course, do as well as we can in terms of putting that pressure, causing that disruption, causing real pain for the two-party system, and representing issues and people who are otherwise not going to be represented in this election. The second half of that is building something. I have as a personal goal over the next 4 or 5 months to find at least 2 or 3 other people who are going to run for office as either an independent or a Green Party member or a People's Party member or whatever in 2024. And then to grow that, you know, to 2026, we have 6 or 8 candidates running, you know, maybe even bigger. I've been really excited by what I've seen happen with the labor movement in this country, you know, particularly say Starbucks and Amazon, something that you thought might never happen. Once it would say Starbucks, once that first store came, what do they have, like 200 now or something like that? And that was only 7 months ago. But that tipping point, and I think while I have an idea that it's going to take us 10, 12 years to really get an organized working party, it's where we're having that impact we want on the political system. I'm also amazed at what I'm seeing with the labor movement and thinking like, you know what, maybe we just need to hit a tipping point. And then it's like dominoes and the process comes and people come to us. You know, we bring in what we create, right? We create the reality we want. And Thomas Paine's been on my mind for something recent, and it's just, you know, you go back to common sense and then the idea to begin the world new again. And we have that opportunity. And I think you guys believe that because here you are starting a political party, you know, I mean, so you're thinking big, you know, and that's what I would love to have, this involvement with you all in whatever capacity it shakes out as. Yeah, I look forward to this conversation tonight, and I hopefully look forward to working with you all, not just in the next 4.5 months of the campaign, but, you know, in the long term.
Thank you so much. Yeah, and you actually answered one of the questions that I was planning on asking you, which is kind of down the line. What our purpose is we're going to be trying to find candidates. How do we help you, you know, churn out more Matthew Hoes, churn out more people to kind of send reinforcements to help you out? You know, wouldn't it be a wonderful thing? Imagine the disruption we could provide if we sent you to the Senate, and imagine what that would be if there was 2 people from North Carolina. Or if some of the groups that we worked with in other states, like when we work with people in Washington, we work with people in Texas, New Jersey, there are other groups like us in different states doing similar things. And so this infrastructure is really in its infancy at this point. And, you know, what we want to do is we want to provide that reinforcement, whether it's you know, obviously we want people to be running on our platform. That's why we're building it. But at the end of the day, if we're fighting for the same thing, that's going to only help you. So I think, you know, you kind of touched on that, but maybe get into the how you're looking to do that, and how you're wanting, you know, how we can help, how us as a group can help you achieve that goal.
Sure. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, because my video on my end has frozen, so I don't know if you can see me or not, but as long as you can hear me.
We can see you.
Okay, all right. I'm my little square or rectangle. I'm stuck in the same pose. It's not very flattering. So,
No.
but you know, first of all, in a sense of like help for the campaign, and Rose is here, and Rose can talk about this, you know, much greater detail than I can. And we're at this point where we are building the campaign out for the next 4.5 months. So we are looking for people for a variety of roles, a variety of time commitments, capacities. You know, one of the things, though, as I talk about the future, though, is that we just don't need to build more candidates. We need to build that infrastructure you're talking about, Aaron. We need to build campaign managers. We need to build treasurers. We need to build media people. We need to build, right? I mean, all these different roles, these issues. We need to, you know, create the teams that people need in order to successfully run. And what we have to show people in order to inspire them to run is that there will be that support for candidates if they run. I mean, the idea of putting somebody into a federal race without giving them any support is, something I can't commit to, right? I mean, this idea of just, okay, you're going to run for the House, the U.S. House, good luck. We'll retweet your stuff for you, and I'll like your stuff on Facebook, and we need to make sure that we have the people who know how to run campaigns, to organize, to work with and build coalitions, and who then know how to deal with the State Board of Elections, who know how to deal with the Federal Election Commission, who know how to work with the media, who know, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So when I talk about building, it really is. And I have to say that I don't believe this is a process in and of itself for itself. I believe that this has to be just one arm of a larger movement. And I think this is something you guys probably agree with, that a political party in and of itself is no good. I mean, we see that right now, the Democrats and Republicans, they exist solely for themselves. And you can break that down further, right? You can reduce that further to exist solely for the donors that support them. So this idea of the political party being an arm of a larger movement is something I very much believe in. And I think that's the way to success. And so in order to do that, we have to have other parts of the body. And, those other parts of the body, of course, can be, various forms of educational aspects, mutual aid, labor organizing, direct action and civil disobedience. I mean, all different parts of the body, that contribute. And the political part is just simply that. It's the political part. That's all it is. But there's a lot to that, going back to the point of building teams and building people who know how to. This is one of the things that Rose and I are concerned about, is making sure that, because we have a lot of younger people who are working for us, making sure that they are coming out of this 4 months from now with the skills they need to move on to another campaign and, not have to have training, supervision, mentorship, whatever, like making sure that when these folks move on to whatever they're going to do next, that they have been given an opportunity to really learn so that they can move on to a campaign and be a candidate, be a treasurer, be a campaign manager, be, whatever it needs to be done, because they've had that experience. So I think that explains some of the how we do this, is provide the experience. Look, this is the first statewide campaign that is raising money in North Carolina. First, as far as I can tell, federal campaign that is raising money in North Carolina. Maybe going back longer there was, but I'm not aware of it. In a sense of the Libertarians, they'll run a ton of candidates and they'll keep their ballot line, but they don't raise any money. They never raise more than $5,000 a candidate, as far as I can tell, to hit the FEC requirement for reporting. So they run pretty bare bones campaigns. And, you can make an argument for that, but then also you make an argument, what are you actually doing? If you're just kind of running to get your 2 or 3%, what's the purpose in that? So the how, again, comes back to, okay, this is as much about causing that immediate pressure, that disruption, that pain on the political system, to make sure the people that we love and care for, our family, our friends, our neighbors, our coworkers, et cetera, are being represented. But at the same time, too, keeping that long-term vision. And so as we attract people to the campaign, as we let people know this is who we are and what we represent, and we need your help, we're also showing them and telling them that, look, we have a long-term vision. This is not about, November 8th, there's election, and then November 9th, you never hear from us again. And I think that has to go into a larger extent as we talk about a movement. Look, the Green Party, People's Party, whatever it's going to be, it can't just do elections. It has to be there on the picket line. It has to be there when school bus, with the school bus driver shortage, it needs to be there, right? And show up and provide something. We really have to get into this idea of like a movement, and we're just a political arm, and that our constituency are working families. That's who we return to all the time, and that's who gives us our reason for being. And so I hope that explains a little bit of how I kind of see it philosophically and kind of big picture, and certainly happy to get into more details on the how if I haven't addressed that well enough.
Can I jump in for a minute?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Mark.
I'm interested in an update on the mechanics of your candidacy. Last I heard, you had gotten the ballot access petitions for the party recognition back from the county boards of elections, and you had considerable cushion of ones that were approved over the 13,767, is it?
13865. That number will be
Okay.
burned into my brain.
Yeah. Well, I'm wondering, have you heard back from the state board of elections, or are you still waiting?
No, well, and gosh, both Rose and I probably should break out like a big bottle of booze right now to discuss this. It's been like this process that has been, it shouldn't have been like this. That's probably the best way.
They're supposed to get back to you in 2 weeks, right?
So what happens is the way it works is we submitted our petitions by the May 17th deadline. And for folks who aren't aware, we submit our petitions to the counties. So counties so registered voters from Durham go to Durham, registered voters from Transylvania go to Transylvania, et cetera. And then the counties verify the validity of those signatures. And we needed 13,865. And we turned in 22,500, roughly 22,400 and something by the May 17 deadline. And we have about 15,900 were verified. That number's kind of gone up and down. But we are 2,100 signatures roughly over what we were required. The idea, as Mark was saying, is that you submit them to the counties verify them, and then they give them back to us. And then we're supposed to then, by June 1st, have given them to the State Board of Elections. So the State Board of Elections can do a final verification, or a certification, if you will, not a verification. And what happened is that for a number of different reasons, including the fact that the primaries were going on at the same time. So the May 17th, if you guys remember, was the day of the primary. So these county boards of elections had a lot going on. As you know, some of these county boards of elections, the election person is also the dog catcher and maintains the pickup truck, right, and everything else for the county. So, there are some good faith reasons. There are also some reasons that I wouldn't necessarily put in the category of good faith, that there was some feet dragging that probably didn't need to occur, some miscommunication that didn't need to occur. So here we are at the 3-week mark after June 1st. And we just were told today, literally a few hours ago, that the State Board of Elections, the actual board, the 3 Democrats and 2 Republicans who are the Board of Elections, they will meet on June 30th to consider our certification. There's been a host of other things. It's been delayed because the State Board of Elections has been investigating a fraction, about 200 of the 22,500 signatures we turned in. About 200 of them had these irregularities. So they wanted to investigate that. And, it's frustrating because that investigation has nothing to do with our certification. Like, those signatures were never certified to begin with. They were never validated or verified. They're meaningless. We had more signatures above the threshold than these accounted for. So, the delay, and I give you guys this detail just so that, and I've heard this from the Constitution Party. One of the Constitution Party guys we're friends on Facebook, and, he's been pretty helpful in terms of yep, same thing happened to us. Saw the same thing. Yeah, we did this and they did that, exactly that. So it's just, I think, helpful for me to vent about it. But the other thing too is to kind of let you guys know that what you're in for is exactly what they tell you you're going to be in for. And I'm sure Mark knows this better than anyone else.
Yeah.
But
okay.
yeah, right. I mean, yeah. So that's where we're at. Hopefully June 30th. Yeah, we get
Follow-up
certified.
question.
Yeah.
Now, along about that time, you have a deadline to hold your nominating convention and notify the State Board of Elections of any other candidates that you have, right?
Right.
So,
Right.
So, if they don't rule on your recognition until the 30th, how much time do you have to have a nominating convention of some sort and try to recruit other candidates knowing that you've actually got a ballot line for them?
Right. That's a great question, Mark. And Rose is drafting an email tonight that our lawyer is going to send to the State Board of Elections tomorrow about that. One of the things we had to do through this process, we had to go to the Center for Competitive Democracy. Rose reached out to them and got a guy named Oliver Hall, who is one of the preeminent elections lawyers, ballot access lawyers in the country, to come on board and help us. And, this is just one of those things, right? That these types of realities that
Going to ask for a deferral then?
We have to get more clarification from the Board of Elections on what the step-by-step process is going to be. We don't know because the statute is vague. Can we hold the nominating convention before we get certified? You could read the statute both ways. It's right, and so it's kind of the good thing is our attorney talks directly with the general counsel for the State Board of Elections. I mean, that's the importance of bringing in someone like that. But because before we got, an election specialist or an associate general counsel or somebody to reply to us. And so, okay, thank you for the help, but is this authoritative? And so today, when I saw something from the general counsel that contradicted something I've been told previously by the State Board of Elections, well, it's from the general counsel. I'm going to go with that's going to be an okay answer. That supersedes what I previously got. But this again this shows the difficulty of this. This shows the deliberate nature of the system to keep people out. Because if you don't have the wherewithal, look, I mean, even if we hadn't, just to get on the ballot, get all those signatures in, what that took, money, time, resources, people, is too much for most independents and most political parties. And then we get to this point, and the fact that it's been 5 weeks of just frustration, back and forth, tension, rumors, what's going to happen. Investigators are calling us. Investigators are calling our petitioners, saying, investigators are calling. My brother, who's our campaign treasurer, got a phone call from the State Board of Elections yesterday asking him to confirm whether or not he'd signed the petition for me. So they're calling people who would sign petitions. So this can be incredibly nerve-wracking. So you have now the thought of well, if you don't have a good, strong group, this can be very fracturing. And it's exhausting. This takes up all of our attention. Rose and I and the rest of the folks, we really can't do the campaigning because we're dealing with this. So it delays the campaign, right? I mean, so you can see how even again, how masterful it is. I used that about the FBC guidebook, but how masterful this is in continuing to exhaust us and continuing to put up hurdles, trying to make it as difficult as possible. This is what we got to spend our money on if we have to get a lawyer, because it's possible, Mark, that what could happen is they say, well, no, you have to have the nominating convention after we certify you, which means it could be, we don't know, but so that would mean we'd have to have the nominating convention, and I'd have to register as a Green Party member between the morning of June 30th and the afternoon of July 1st. All that would have to happen. And right, I mean, it may or may not. And so, then we have to have a lawyer, and then we have to have a lawyer, and then we have to, and I've been talking about the challenges that can come from outside. The Democrats may or may not try and challenge either our party or our candidacy, whether or not there's something to challenge. But we also know who these people are, and these people will make things up, because the idea being even if they throw something frivolous at it, like Matt Hoh doesn't actually live in Wake Forest, we still then have to defend that. So now we got to pay for the lawyer, and rather than concentrating on the campaign, we're concentrating on this legal. And so again, this is just what we're up against. And we hope that we're able to utilize this. I mean, I'm excited by a fight like this. Trust me, I get really excited by the idea of this is what I want to do. This is why I'm doing it. Please prove my point that the two-party system is exclusionary, keeps people out, is beholden to corporate money by ensuring grassroots campaigns can't succeed. Please prove my point. Please let me talk to the News and Observer about this again. So we hope to be able to use this but it's also too, there's the real aspect of this, as you know, of this can be really exhausting for a campaign, and it's purposeful in that. And the ultimate idea, I think, would be to get it to the point where the campaign runs out of money, runs out of steam, people forget about it. Or, ultimately, I think that the great goal would be, well, you know, we still didn't get you on the ballot yet. We've already printed the absentee ballots and just, oh, sorry about that. It's too late. Maybe next time, you know, I mean, like run the clock out, which I don't think is possible, but ultimately that's what they'd like to do. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
And if I can just interject for one moment. When I said that Matt is the best candidate that I've ever worked for, I also knew that the flip side of that is that the system would consider him the most dangerous candidate I ever worked for. And that you expect anything and everything from them. So while this is draining, it wasn't like it was something I was totally unprepared that any of this could be happening. It's actually going depressingly according to how I thought it might happen.
Yeah.
I think as far as registering green, I think you get something like a 2-week window or something like that after the convention. So at least that's some comfort, but you don't have to, at least you don't have to do it before, which of course you can't. In this
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I can impart to you guys, if you don't, you know, I'm sure Mark knows this already, and some of the other folks do this already. Get everything in writing you can from the State Board of Elections. You like detail by, because even the response we got today, our attorney's letter to or email to the general counsel was pretty clear what we were asking, and the response we got back was it gave us some information, but then it left more questions open. So now we got to go back and ask, okay, can you clarify? Does this mean, because the statute can be raised, you know, it can be read either way. So yeah. But yeah, no, this is exactly what we're expecting. And, you know, I'm happy for the fight. You know, I really am.
I have a perfect segue for this. However, it is Stacy's birthday, I believe, and her
Oh.
hand is up. So I'm going to just switch it. And
I'm done.
I'm going to throw it to you, Stacy. Go ahead.
Happy birthday,
Oh,
Stacey.
I'm so lucky. Thank you. Birthday comes in handy finally. Listen, so I have a quick question on this topic, Matthew. And I believe this is an issue that Jill Stein has really sunk her teeth into. And I wonder if, you know, you guys can collaborate, or you can lean on her or get a boost from her in some way to help publicize this issue. Because yeah, I think that's a big one for her, wouldn't you say? That's my question.
Yeah. If I mean, folks aren't aware of, Jill's getting hit with a lawsuit from the FEC. I'm not sure where it's at these last few weeks, but basically they're trying to recoup some of the presidential matching funds that she had used, because it had been used for, I forget what, I'll mischaracterize if I try to explain it, but it basically is, they're trying to make Jill as an example. That's how I read it. Like, look, if you want to run as an independent or third party or whatever candidate, you want to mess the system up, there's going to be consequences. And, you know, the fine against Jill is like $200,000 or something like that. Right. And the way it works is that's a fine against the candidate. That's $200,000 against Jill, not against the Green Party, not against the Green Party of Massachusetts or against her campaign, but it's against her, you know, I mean, so that's a pretty big, you know, people looking at it can say, oh, I don't know if I want to take that risk. You know, I don't know if I want to set myself up for incurring the wrath of the system, you know, like I'm going to be punished for challenging its authority. So I speak with Jill pretty often. Jill's been incredibly supportive of the campaign. We've got folks working for us who came from Jill, basically. You know, our comms director is one of Jill's people, you know, and she's been a really, really wonderful help. And yeah, we're going to use her however we can, and she's going to help us however she can. And, you know, particularly once the campaign gets moving. And, you know, one of the things too, you know, just to reinforce where we've been with this limbo we're in, it jams everything up. And it's another aspect of the way the system works. So just give you an example for fundraising. This last month, fundraising has been kind of difficult to do, because do I call and say, hey, can you help us out because we're on the ballot? Or do I call and say, hey, can you help us out because we need a lawyer? Right. I mean, you know, so it's you know, in all our messaging and everything else gets tied up in this. And you see that where if they're able to do this, they're able to keep us from doing anything other than campaigning. They're winning, because as someone said earlier about getting the name out there, look, look, our goal is we've got 7.5 million registered voters in North Carolina. How do we get this name out? How do we get this campaign out? How do we let people know that we are here? That look, do you want to vote for someone who's in favor of Medicare for all or single payer? Oh, you do? Well, actually, there's someone who's running on that. Oh, you didn't know that? You know, I mean, like that. You know, how do we get that out? And so, but no, you know, I actually need to call Jill, so I'm thankful for the reminder.
Thank you so much. And you know, Rose had mentioned something that I wanted to highlight, which was, you know, they're essentially scared of you because of who you are and how good of a candidate you are. And we've seen it on how you're able to meet with people, answer questions, and your experience and your background. And I wanted to ask you about, so it looks, I believe it's like a little over 10 years ago, you walked away from a role in Washington that created quite a stir. And so I just wanted to read this and kind of get your thoughts on this. So you said, so it says, U.S. official resigns over Afghan war. It says, when Matthew Hoh joined the Foreign Service early this year, he was exactly the kind of smart civil military hybrid the administration was looking for to help expand its development efforts in Afghanistan. Then it later says, but last month, in a move that has sent ripples all the way to the White House, Hoh, 36, became the first U.S. official known to resign in protest over the Afghan war, which he had come to believe simply fueled the insurgency. And you had some comments here. And then it says, the reaction to Hoh's letter was immediate. Senior U.S. officials concerned that they would lose an outstanding officer and perhaps gain a prominent critic appealed to him to stay. And then another excerpt here says from, let's see, Richard C. Holbrooke, the admin special rep for Afghanistan and Pakistan, says, we took his letter very seriously because he was a good officer. Holbrooke said in an interview, we all thought that given how serious his letter was, how much commitment there was, and his prior track record, we should pay close attention to him. Now here you are running for Senate. What a story. What that jumps out at me, like really does. Like you don't see this every day. It's what makes you a prominent candidate nationally because of your experience. So can you just talk us through that, or that excerpt that in your journey leading up to that, and then your journey since then?
Gosh, yeah, no, a lot of lying to myself, a lot of hedging for my own self-interest, a lot of believing that you can be a moral actor in an immoral situation. I mean, I'm here as a third-party candidate, as a disruptor, because I've given the system way too many chances. I went in the Marine Corps in the late 90s, and we had colonels and generals and sergeants major who had taken part in the Vietnam War. And all of them, I mean, I can, the number of times I had a guy stand in front of us and say, we're never going to let the same mistakes as Vietnam happen. And then within a couple of years, they did. And then going into that and thinking I can make a difference, or that I can, if I'm better than other guys, so I'll bring guys home, or that when I'm a senior guy, I will do things differently. All these lies I told to myself, all these excuses. And then with the Obama administration, well, the Obama administration will be different. I know people coming in there. I know these guys are, and I'm going to go to Afghanistan and it's going to be different. And then get to Afghanistan, it was no fundamentally different, either the war or the administration, no difference. And so I leave. And even then, though, I'm hedging. I'm not wanting to give up the idea of going back into the government. A lot of selfish reasons, a lot of romantic reasons or idealistic reasons of like, you can make change. And, even when that, after a year or so, when I realized that's not going to happen and I don't want it, I don't want it. I'm still in DC. I'm at a think tank, and, a very left-wing think tank, our friends are Barbara Lee and Jim McGovern and folks like that, and we are as anti-establishment as you can get for a think tank. Still part of the system. You're still in DC. I'm still putting on a suit and tie, and and then my activism kicks in. I'm getting into Veterans for Peace. I'm involved with Code Pink. I'm doing a lot of on the ground work, putting my body on the line, which is so important to do. And I don't see the change. The moral impetus is there. The need for that action is there. But the top line, so I've had these experiences at both the congressional level, the top level in DC, and, I've been in jail, and everything in between. And what I've learned is that we have to just to break the system. And we have to use all manners of resources. Now, we don't have the resources that the Leviathan does. And Leviathan, I think, is a great term for it. We just don't. So we can't go against it head on. We have to go asymmetrically. But that does not mean we don't participate in politics. That does not mean we don't do direct action. That does not mean we don't do education. That does not mean we don't do mutual aid, right? We're not out there doing whatever we need to do. We have to do all these things, but we have to do it in a way that hits the weakest parts of the system. And one of those things is, for me now at this point, to run a congressional race, to run a federal race, to run a U.S. Senate race in a state where it's a close enough race that we are going to attract the attention, we're going to get the fundraising, right? And we're going to make a difference. And we're going to make the two-party system, and specifically, I guess, the Democrats, hurt, because they've claimed my whole life that they've supported working people. So to say, but that's a false claim. So to say they abandoned working people, they abandoned working people in the 70s. It begins under Carter, I believe. I think his 72 election is the last we see of that Democratic Party. And so I think this idea that running now in this way to put that pressure to make the system hurt is what we have to do. And the goal with that is threefold. It's to build a party, to build a mass movement, the things we've talked about already, to put the pressure on the system to change, to force the parties to come over towards us. Because I don't care how we get single payer as long as we get it. And the history in this country of populist movements, like with the Populist Party, is that the two major parties take those ideas over. And that's fine. That's how we got child labor laws. That's how we got the 8-hour workday. You know what I mean? Because, right. I'm oversimplifying greatly, but you all understand. So is to try and pull things back for working families, to try and do something to make the Overton window, if you will, move left. And then the third thing is to restructure the system, make it so difficult, get other candidates to run, that to have our current political system, a first past the post, 50 plus one, whatever you want to describe it as, is just untenable. And the parties realize we have to switch to a multi-party democracy, which includes ranked choice voting and proportional representation, et cetera, et cetera. So that's kind of, I hope maybe that explains how I get to this point. But seeing that being in the system, all the chances I gave it, all the lies I told myself, and trying different stages, finally at this point of okay, this is what has to be done, in my opinion, to put that type of pain and pressure on the system, as well as to actually represent the people who need to be represented.
That's well said. And I guess to take this one step further, so envision this: come November, people are addressing you as U.S. Senator Matthew Hoh. What will it take? So we kind of talked a little bit of what it'll take to happen, but let's say once you get there, how are you going to leverage your power and influence to fight for the policies that you advocate for on your platform? I know you did a great job covering a lot of this on Sabby's interview, and she kind of went line by line with a lot of the stuff on your platform, and it was really well done. But they're going to be coming together. You'll see more than ever Democrats and Republicans working together to go against you because you're an outsider. So what's your strategy? How are you going to leverage, for example, advocacy groups or people who are organizers to help you in that fight, to help you fight back that establishment?
I mean, bluntly, I hate them and they can hate me as far as I'm concerned. I owe them nothing and they'll never give me anything. And that's how I go into it, knowing that. Look, I think AOC had it right when she got to Congress and walked into Speaker Pelosi's office and took part in that sit-in with the Sunrise Movement.
Yeah.
And then Speaker Pelosi and Steny Hoyer and all these other folks whispered things into her ear, some good, some bad. Like, look, you play this right, you might be 15 years, be the speaker yourself. You know,
Mama Bear.
You
Now
keep-
all of a sudden she's Mama Bear.
Exactly. I don't have that. I mean, Chuck Schumer. I mean, like I've met Chuck Schumer. You know, I mean, like. It's a funny story how quickly like the members of Congress I was with badmouthed them as soon as they got away from them, you know. I mean, like, but I have no allegiance to them. I have no desire to participate in their system, to caucus with them. I know the risks that takes not caucusing, but also too in a tightly divided Senate, the role that one senator can play, and we've seen that with Manchin and Sinema, is massive. And so, I mean, I also I'm not doing this for I don't want to go back to Washington, D.C. I've lived up there way too long. I mean, like, so, I mean, I have no interest in this other than getting for our people what they need. So if I get there and they think that they're getting a $15 billion submarine, as a submarine's cost now, or a $2 billion bomber, or fossil fuel subsidies, or, you know, any of the other, you know, that there's somehow going to be something for the pharmaceutical and healthcare industry without some type of return, say a waiver of vaccination, or whatever it is, whatever the things are, I will, you know, that's the way I plan on doing it. I don't think, I think the other part of it is that, you know, as I was talking about in this state, building the movement, building the network, building the coalitions, you know, now you have a national prominence. Now you have ability to do that nationally, to do, you know, to have that soapbox, to go. I mean, I heard Bernie Sanders saying this years ago, you know, go to Mitch McConnell's state and talk about Mitch McConnell. Now, Sanders hasn't really done that. Barack Obama never really did that. You know, Joe Biden certainly hasn't done that. I'll do that. I'm happy to go, you know, I mean, because, you know, I know that the reality for a person in that position may be limited in terms of reelection. So make it as, and you know, so it's a lot of different things, but to be someone that is the worst thing that's ever happened to the U.S. Senate in terms of the established interests continuing to get what they want, that's the role I want to play. And it allows us to continue to build this movement, continue to build a third party, recruit people. You show people that it can be done. Again, you go back to the idea of Starbucks unionizing. You know, well, it took one, and then boom, it happened. You know, and now it's every week you see one or two more, you know, even more than that, or, you know, I mean, like, so Amazon, you ever think Amazon was going to unionize? And now we got about, you know, down in Garner, you know, Rose and I need to follow up with these folks. We're going to talk with the Amazon labor union that's forming down here in Garner. You know, so it is very possible. It's think big, begin the world new again, you know, that type of thing. And again, like I said, I mean, I guess you could sum it up as I hate them and I don't care if they hate me. You know, because the people I care about are here. Yeah.
You speak truth to power, and it's inspiring because most people we come across are in the realm of politics are cowards. They're not willing and able to fight for the people and put their actions, back up what they're saying with their actions. I wanted to dive in one quick part here on this article that just came out on your website. I'm not sure if you guys can see it, but I noticed behind you, you have a picture of Julian Assange, and it's, you know, in speaking about speaking truth to power, this really speaks to me because it's about as plain as day as you can get. Yet there are people who are either shying away from this topic or not even bringing it up or acting like it's not happened. But this is a huge deal. So just a few days ago, this came out. It says that Matthew Hoh, presumed Green Party candidate for the U.S. Senate from North Carolina, strongly condemns the decision by British Home Secretary Priti Patel in approving the extradition of WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange to the U.S. The war crimes revealed by Assange have never been prosecuted by. The thirst for vengeance from the U.S. government for truth-telling is still not quenched, and the U.K. has continued to aid and abet the inhumane treatment of Assange and the wholesale attack of journalistic freedom it represents. I mean, essentially, it's an attack on the freedom of speech, and it's egregious. And so you say, you know, Friday's approval of the extradition of Assange to the U.S. by the British Home Secretary is a cowardly and disgraceful move that deepens an already weak state of democracy, freedom of the press, and truth-telling for the public interest in the U.S. and the West. And you know, your statement goes on. It's a great statement. I mean, it goes on to say Julian Assange has been hounded, prosecuted, and jailed for the sole crime of publishing truthful and factual documents, videos, and files of the U.S. wars in the Muslim world. Contrast this with the complete lack of accountability for those wars. For example, you have George Bush, who should be prosecuted as a war criminal, totally free, yet someone who's speaking truth to power and you know, shedding light on what happened is being detained in this way and being prosecuted. So this, you know, this is such an excellent statement, and this is a great example to me on what, you know, this is a topic that both what people on the right could fall behind because it's the freedom of speech and they you know agree, and on the left. So this type of this type of topic, this type of like bravery to kind of be honest, be straightforward, be truthful. What more of that can we see from you, and what makes this specific topic so powerful, so something that's so, you know, close to you in putting out there?
Well, certainly, you know, I took part in the wars, and I mean, that's something that I regret and carry with me for the rest of my life. I met Julian Assange. I was in the Ecuadorian embassy with him. I have been supported in ways by WikiLeaks that are kind of difficult to explain, but they were supportive. And you know, I think the hypocrisy of it all is what really, the anger, as you can tell, there's a lot of anger that's fueling my campaign. There's a lot of compassion, there's a lot of anger. And the idea that I was on MSNBC talking about WikiLeaks, and MSNBC has completely abandoned Julian Assange. You know, that you know, I've spoke to reporters from newspapers at that time period, 2010, 2011, you know, confirming what they said and doing like kind of background with them and everything else, and going through, you know, I was over in Europe actually. And I remember talking with journalists. They would send me stuff and like, can you tell us what this means? We need someone who understands what this stuff means. And, you know, and then, you know, their abandonment of him for a decade, as well as to the sheer deviousness of, whether it's a deviousness of the right, where you saw with Trump's government, the idea that they wanted to assassinate Assange and they want to use this to suppress any kind of dissent, or the deviousness of the Obama and, well, particularly Biden administrations now, where the deviousness lies in their desire to see Assange die in prison, never receive a fair trial. Even if he does come here, he'll receive a secret trial for the most part. And then the idea that the dissent also is stifled. You know, the dangers to this, I write in that this is the worst assault, the most dangerous assault on the First Amendment since Richard Nixon. And people should really take that for what it is the fact that Joe Biden is doing more or less what Nixon and Kissinger wanted to do to Dan Ellsberg. You know, I mean, this is, and then in terms of overall in our history, this is like John Adams' Alien Sedition Acts. This is like actually it is. I mean, this is Woodrow Wilson's Espionage Act that is being used against Julian Assange. The danger here is immense, and what it will do to, and on a larger issue, then you have this idea that we have seen just a gross evisceration of human rights, whether they be for Americans or for people outside the United States, in all forms, whether it be through torture, indefinite detention, the mass spying on the American people by the NSA and the CIA. I mean, all these types of things. This is just one more element of that as they eviscerate, you know, various amendments, throw the first one in there. And certainly, I think you could tie, abortion rights into that as well. Another evisceration of our rights as individuals. So, I mean, there certainly is a lot that can be said, and it is very personal to me. And I do admire Julian very much. And what's being done to him is incredibly immoral and unjust and criminal. But there is that larger issue. This is a huge danger for our First Amendment protections.
I couldn't agree more. And I think this is an excellent example of what differentiates you from basically any other candidate I've ever seen in recent history, because not only do you understand the current events of what's going on, but also like the machinations of what goes behind it and the why. And I think understanding that background is so important and critical in getting to the root of the problem. And what we've seen, a lot of us here, is you dig deep enough, the root of the problem ends up being imperialism and capitalism.
Right.
And that's it. And so, a lot of people that have their heart in the right place and can see the pain and the hurt and what's going on in our country and around the world, and understand that there's a problem, keep falling short on the solution. And maybe we'll just vote blue harder. And it's like,
Right.
No, you can't just keep doing the same things and expect a different outcome. And so I really admire you for speaking truth to power. And it's really good hearing you speak about Julian Assange, because he's been erased by most people. Now, what I want to do with the rest of the time, I know Mark has his hand up, and then there's some comments here. So there are some questions in here. We'll do kind of like a rapid fire on the questions.
Okay.
Because I think there's a lot and we may not be able to get to all of them. So I can read them, or I'll read them too. But before we do that, I'll throw it to Mark, because I think his hand's been up for a while.
Yeah, I got it. I got a quickie. Just a little tidbit. You mentioned what you called the Populist Party, and it's commonly referred to as that, partly because its actual name was the same as the party we're starting, the People's Party.
Oh,
And there was debate in the press. What do you call a member of the People's Party? It can't just be a person. That's not particularized enough. So they ended up calling them populists. And the 501c4 pressure group that we are also setting up in conjunction with the party to do things that a party can't do, such as endorsing a candidate like you, for example. We are calling it Populist Action.
okay.
But one of the things you mentioned, that their platform had elements that the major parties picked up and that ended up becoming law. You know what one of them was? Direct election of senators.
Yes. Right. Was that the 17th Amendment? Is that right?
Yeah, something like that. But it was part of the 1892 Omaha platform of the People's Party. So I just thought, anyway,
Yeah.
just wanted to throw that little tidbit in there.
Yeah, no, and actually too, I mean, you look at what the Progressive Party did, the Socialist Party did in the first parts of the 20th century, certainly indebted to what Eugene Debs did, and others like him, and then of course all those great anarchists. Emma Goldman will always have a spot in my heart. I mean, her biography is something that is very, very important to me. Reading her book a bunch of years ago, that was a turning point to me, reading her biography. So what they were able to do and what came from it, and it wasn't all that they wanted, of course, but it certainly made things much better for a lot of people. But we're losing that. And if you guys saw that, they had that worker, Caterpillar had that worker who fell into a molten vat of molten, pit or whatever, in a foundry, and a person fell into one of the molten pits. Like that stuff from Upton Sinclair's The Jungle, and it's happening now because we've allowed labor and work protections just to be cut so drastically and so cravenly and just so greedily. Yeah. So, we're kind of, I feel in many ways, we're getting back to where those great forefathers and foremothers were, you know, and trying to just save some of what they accomplished for us.
Thank you. Stacy?
I think my question might be too philosophical. I'll pose it and then you can just say another time. And it was
Okay.
like, about the Assange thing. You know, this is a big question for me as somebody interested in political party. Is how do you balance what you know is the truth and what you believe in your heart of hearts with being able to attract enough voters?
Right.
Right, because there's gonna a lot of people who are, you know, unless you can really have really deep conversations with people, they're gonna say they have this preconceived notion about who Assange is and why he's so evil, right? So that's a big question for me all the time. I know you might not have time to answer it now, but
No, I mean, and certainly, I had this experience just a few days ago because I had my Free Assange T-shirt on, and the UPS guy came up and and he said, "That's a great T-shirt," and people know a lot more than what we give them credit for, and we get oh shoot, who's the Republican senator, Ben Sass. I probably never agree with anything the guy said before in my life, but a couple weeks ago, he made the point of saying that, look, we argue with each other. He's talking about his fellow senators and members of Congress. He said, look, we argue with each other every day. And then we go on MSNBC and Fox and we make sure that we had the right things to argue about. And we repeat the whole cycle. And about 3% of the country watches MSNBC and Fox, but it dominates. And so we have to make sure that we're not ourselves being dominated by the media that we are paying attention to. And so the idea that people we got this a lot. And, in terms of the petitioning effort we just did, we went out, got 22,500 signatures, talked to a lot of people. The number of times that we were presented with oh my God, you're going to be a spoiler for Sherry Beasley. It did blah, 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 Ralph Nader, Jill Stein, a handful. Meanwhile, we had tens of thousands of people. I mean, I had conservatives saying to me, look, I'm a conservative. You're obviously a socialist. I'm never going to vote for you, but we need you on the ballot because we need to change this thing. So I think we got to be very careful of being consumed by the MSNBC, the Fox, the Twitter talking points that we see because we're all political nerds and that's the stuff we dive into. And that's not most folks. And most folks want to hear the bread and butter stuff. Most folks want to hear the stuff that's affecting them. The cost of living, the healthcare experience for most people, the decision of do I go to the doctor if I've got more than X amount, can I go to the doctor? All those kinds of things. So I think we have to keep it real, if you will, and make sure we're talking to people. And I have no problem explaining who Julian Assange is. And, again, it's the idea of what he stood for. And, he did this and he did that. And, most people believe the government's corrupt. Most people don't trust it. Most people are against the wars, on and on and on. And so, it is this idea of meeting people where they're at, talking to them. I saw in the chat, how are you going to talk to Republican voters? And just exactly that. Listen to them. Listen to them and talk to them. As we can, get out to as many people as we can and talk to them and listen to them. More importantly, listen to them. And because the things that we are concerned with are the things that they are concerned with. Again, they're concerned that they don't have enough money to go to the doctor. They're concerned that their rent is going up, or the fact that their parents have owned their house free and clear for decades now, but you know what? Their house has now doubled in value, which means their taxes are going up a couple $1,000s. All these types of things that hit us here I live in Wake Forest, different people live different places, but are affecting the folks in the rural areas, the red areas, the Republican areas. The fact that my kid's going to go to school, he's going to come out with $150,000 in debt, and he's going to pay that off the rest of his life. Right. So, all these things. And as we found, one of our big key messages for petitioning was ending the war on drugs. And we had just that the people would flock to us to talk to us about that, not because they want to get high in a park, You know, maybe some of them did, but the most people were coming because they had seen the effect of the war on drugs in their communities, either through the incarceration, the way it ruins lives, or the fact that we treated people with substance abuse and addiction issues as criminals rather than as a public health concern. And the number of people that every time I was out there talking to folks, the number of times I heard about, you know, a lot of times it was children. My child had surgery, got addicted to opioids, ended up overdosing, ended up, you know, and if you're in the veterans community, you know, this is just the ODs and the addiction is rife, absolutely rife. The number of people I know who've OD'd, you know, it's just, so it's talking about those things, you know, and that's how you reach out to them, is you listen and you meet them where they're at, and you make sure, you know, they know that we're representing you. We're an issues-based campaign, and we're a class-based campaign. We're not an identity. I don't want your red or your blue. You know, I want to do what's best for my neighborhood.
Excellent.
Well
Thank you
said.
so much for answering that, Matthew. It was an excellent answer.
I got
Renewed
another.
my faith. Appreciate it.
I got another philosophical one for you really quickly.
Sure.
So this is from Maple. So do candidates represent a party's values and opinions, or the party hoping candidates represent the people's opinions from the candidate talking with the people?
I think there's that's a great question. And I think it's a question that probably has as many answers as are people listening to it. And my concern with the current electoral system we have is that people are compromising on their vote when they get to the ballot box. So the way I kind of envision is that from the voter perspective, you vote for someone who represents your views, your beliefs, your issues, who's going to do something for you, your family, your community, your neighborhood, etc. And then you vote for that person, and then that person gets to the state legislature, the county commission, the Congress, and then they compromise, then they negotiate. And the problem is that we're compromising as voters, and we're voting for compromised candidates. And so what do we expect, you know, particularly in a system that's controlled by money? That's what's going to win out. And so for me, I mean, yeah, I think a candidate, I can tell you how I am. Look, I've observed the world. I've lived my life. I've seen a lot of things, and I've come to believe in a economic and political philosophy that's you know is democracy and socialism. That's where I've come to believe that those are that's what the urgency needs to be met with, and it's also the thing that's going to sustain as well. Democracy and socialism, all other things won't meet the urgency and they won't sustain. And I mean, so that's where my values go back to. And why do I have those values? Because of people I love in my life. So people I love in my life, you know, who have been hurt by the deliberate government decisions of the last 50 years, the deliberate, say, financialization policies of this country that have made the rich richer, the corporations stronger, the banks bigger, and the working class poor, deliberate policies. I have people in my life who have to, you know, all this stuff I say about checking your checking account before you go to the doctor. I have people in my life who live like that. They make dangerous decisions on their life based upon how much money they have in their checking account. I have neighbors who are being forced to move because corporations are coming in and buying their homes. I don't know if that's the case with the house there, but I know it's the case with the house there. You know, we are living in a society that has been squeezed to ensure the money goes to the top in every way possible. And I'll begin this with Nixon going off the gold standard in 71, but I'm sure we can debate about when it starts, right? And you know, but this idea that everything has been squeezed to the top, and even we're going to suppress workers' wages, and then we're going to sell them credit because that saves us money and it makes us money. You know, I just saw the other day that the average new car price in this country is $712 a month. That's the average for a new car in this country, $712 a month, right? And the Fed just raised its rate 0.75 points because they're concerned that the banks are going to lose value of their debt because of inflation, right? Because as inflation goes, the value of the debt they hold decreases because money's now worth more. That is why the Fed is, there's a statute of Paul Volcker, I mean, for them. So like, and this idea that this has all been deliberate, and those deliberate choices have brutalized our people, not to mention the tens of millions that we have killed in overseas wars, made homeless, discarded for life, right? I mean, not to mention those people, but the people here that have been brutalized, victimized, who suffer every day because of the choices. I saw, I'll end my soapbox here. I saw today that Larry Summers was talking to Joe Biden. Larry Summers, if anyone who should be disqualified from ever speaking publicly again, it's Larry Summers. And but he's the one who's on the phone talking to Biden about unemployment, how we need to raise the unemployment rate to 5% in order to stop inflation. And I was reminded the other day that there's a great scene in the movie The Big Short. In the book, it's fantastic as well, but where they're talking about the crisis of 2008, 2009, as just reminded us of the day, where they say that for every 1% the unemployment rate goes up, 40,000 people die. So Summers is happy with our inflation rates at 3.5 now, low 3. Summers is 80,000 people can die. So yeah, I mean, like that's the type of anger that I have, and the seeing that this has been deliberate, and lots of people have gotten rich, but most of the folks have suffered. Yeah.
Yeah, we share that anger. I see Rose has her hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah,
she's frozen.
Who did you call on?
There you go. I think we can hear you now. What was that?
Who did you call on? I just wanted to.
You.
Oh, me. Okay, good. I
Yeah.
didn't want you interrupting somebody else. I just wanted to add very briefly to that in terms of what this campaign is about and who are the people who are running this campaign, like myself. I watched my husband die a horrible death. He was a revolutionary his whole life, and he was hospitalized with cellulitis. And by the time the hospitals were done with him, he had pneumonia, he had severe sepsis, and finally the COVID that killed him. Well, he begged for them to vaccinate him, and the reason for not vaccinating him was that we don't do that in the hospital. He has to go to Publix, and well, he can't stand. Yeah, well, bummer for you, man. So I've had conversations with Matt where he's asked me my advice for a friend of his on how I deal with my teeth, given I get constant infections that I can't get dentistry for. And, and I gave him a long detailed, tell her, you have to wash with oil and, just all these home remedies that keep me from losing my teeth. So I'm just saying this to say, I very much understand, this isn't a campaign being run by elites, people who are these insiders and upper middle class elites who, can think about, well, what are the problems of the little people? I is the little people. And I've made a choice in life to carry on my husband's legacy because, this was, he always told me politics are in your blood. And I said, Jeff, when you're gone, I'm not going to want to do this anymore. He said, you will. This is in your blood. And he was right about that. But so when Matt talks about he's doing this really for the people in his life, this is something that we're doing from the heart. And I have no problem connecting with the pain of this nation because I've been through so much of it myself. And so I don't just do this as a hobby. I don't just do this as a way to, by golly, I want to get involved. No, I do this to fight for myself and to fight for every Jeff out there in the hospital for who for-profit healthcare hasn't killed them, and he would demand that I help take care of them and help keep them alive in the way I guess I unfortunately couldn't do for him. And just so people know, my phone is draining, so if this goes on much longer, I might have to.
Yeah, I appreciate. I just
just so you know.
we're almost done here, but I just want to say thank you for sharing your story, and it definitely fires us up because I think everyone here is on the same page, and we all understand the urgency of this, and it's part of what's frustrating when people say, "Oh, are you going to be a spoiler?" One thing that Matthew said in a interview that stuck with me was when someone was asking. How do you feel about being a spoiler, or aren't you a spoiler, or something of that nature? And then you said you can't spoil something that's already rotten. And I was like, A, I'm taking that. And B, that's amazing. So I just, I just wanted to add, just like, we're running out of time here. I know Ed has his hand up, so I just wanted to kind of like, this was kind of the last thing I was gonna ask you, and then if there's people that want to hang around after and ask questions, we'll stop the recording and we'll do that. But before we kind of move forward, one question I had, is there? It's kind of a general question, but is there a topic, or I know you've been to different interviews, you've been to different places. Is there something that you kind of wished people had asked you and kind of wanted to talk about that you haven't been able to yet? And if so, what's that question that you haven't been asked yet? And what's the answer to that question?
Gosh, I don't know. I've had a lot of good opportunities to talk, the ability to speak about what makes us different, why we represent a part of the electorate of the population that is otherwise not represented, is something I always try and make sure to address, to make sure the point that, look, we are the only campaign that's running on single payer here. We're the only campaign that's running on universal higher education. We're the only campaign that's running on an annualized livable wage that ties into localized housing costs. So this idea that we actually embody the idea that housing, healthcare, education, and jobs are human rights, and we're the only campaign that does it. The Democrats have 15 candidates running for federal office in North Carolina. Only one supports single payer healthcare. Only one. So the idea that somehow if we are not in this campaign, there are how many millions of people disenfranchised because of that. And the same thing nationally. We see the poll numbers. We know that these things are popular, that people want these things, that people need these things. And so not to have them, and that's of course deliberate. That's of course, part of the whole exclusionary two-party system. So yeah, I think that's the thing I always want to try and address, because the spoiler thing comes up, I pivot to that. And the other thing is too, like I said, I don't like the term spoiler. But I'm really happy to embrace the term disruptor.
Well said. So where can we find you? Obviously, your website is out there, but what are some places we can find you and support you and help you and help?
It's MatthewHoforSenate.org. So Ho is HOH and for is FOR. So it's MatthewHoforSenate.org. And certainly. If you can contact either Rose or myself. So Rose is rose@MatthewHoforSenate.org, and I'm Matt@MatthewHoforSenate.org in terms of email addresses. Please reach out to us. We can use, as we said before, various degrees of help. We can also use donations. So, the donations are, we need the money. We're up against, in 2020, the U.S. Senate race in North Carolina, the Tillis Cunningham race, they spent $300 million on that race. I don't know if they'll do that again this year, but they may do 325, they may do 350, right? The amount of money is just, it's the root of the problem, I think, as many of us can agree, right? And so, the money, and what I'd ask is, if you can reach out to other people, if you believe in the campaign, you want to help the campaign. One of the things that I've seen most successful is when people contact personal friends, family directly, an email. Hey, this is the guy I'm endorsing for U.S. Senate. Check him out. Please support him if you can. And we see a lot of success from like that personal ask of people. But certainly, yeah, Rose at MatthewHoferSenate.org or Matt at MatthewHoferSenate.org. Please reach out to us, and if you can help.
HOH.
Yeah, HOH.
All right,
Yeah.
just in case you
Yeah.
don't know. And Aaron, I'm going to send my number to you. Feel free to share it. People can be in touch with me. We could talk about ways you can get plugged in. The
Okay.
campaign needs people who really want to be part of this and campaign. My phone just gave me a low battery message. It said, hey, you're on low battery.
It sounds good.
Yeah, I do that, phone.
I just want to, on behalf of the group, just say thank you to everyone. Thank you to you, Rose, and to you, Matthew, for coming and spending the time and answering our questions. And obviously, everyone here, we're informed and we're motivated, we're angry and we're caring. And I feel like people where we sit and where we stand in the political spectrum are the most caring people in the world, because we give a damn to know what's going on. And so I appreciate of you spending the time. And what we're going to do is we're going to end the recording portion of it, and then we're going to open it up to anyone who wants to jump in, if you're able to stay. I'm not sure if you'll be able to.
My words are worth recording, man. Either way, man. Look, I got a couple things I want to shoot in now. One of the things that you may have heard of, did you hear how
okay, this is Ed. Sorry, I wasn't sure who was.
Oh, I know Ed.
You guys all know who I am.
I know
you
Ed.
guys all know. I've been at your meetings.
What's up, Ed?
You guys. Yeah, I mean, Matt knows me. You know, what I mean, come on now. Anyway, let's move on to the next stuff.
Ed's from New York. He's a fighter. He's fiery.
Yeah, Matt knows. Yeah,
Yeah.
Matt's,
What's up, Ed? I havenn't seen you in a minute.
Yo,
You weren't on my
really high
screen.
quality, let's check out this high quality information. So first of all, you heard how the Nevada Democrats took over in Buffalo and this other thing, right? There's something called county committee. And the thing is that county committee actually controls, right? That's why activists can do stuff in Europe and they can't do stuff in the United States. There's a new movie that just came out called County, starring my boy Fiocchino. I don't know if you know about my work with him, doing the third-party independent candidate assistance stuff, but I'm deep in that game, bro, seriously. Okay, let's get to the next thing. So the thing is that county committee, they assign the judges, and they're the ones who are going to be able to do election law and things like that. So you want to, now, I also have in touch in North Carolina, people like, Michelle Lewis, people like Barbara Gaskins, people like other candidates who are running, who may also, right? Remember, even though Barbara Gaskins is a Democrat, right? Honestly, I'm willing to go Democrat if, right? Yeah. And some Democrats are willing to support Matthew Hoh. He's a very likable candidate. He's had a history of service. Anybody with veterans in their family will appreciate what Matthew Hoh's work. You know what I mean? There's no reason to go into those communities and try to get him some votes and maybe actually win. You know what I mean? Hey, I want Matt to win for real. Another thing that I have set up for you guys is actually I have just in the North Carolina, some states have actually all the student bodies, like, or all the students like in the university system are actually together. North Carolina has one of these systems, but I've also contacted schools individually. Sometimes the parochial schools, like Catholic schools, are not really in that system, but I'm emailing them all as well. I have them ready to come to a meeting. Besides also public housing, I have some people in public housing I just went to DC with. Now, the thing is that if you look at public housing and you look at the students, they're traditionally groups that do not vote. But if we can activate these groups, remember, they were very powerful for Obama, we might be able to activate these groups for Matthew Hoh. I'm talking about really fucking winning. So the thing is that I have actually a meeting set where I emailed Matthew Hoh. I think, did you get that email? I also sent the email to several other candidates who are interested in coming. Okay, here's one of the things, though. They asked for the meeting on Thursday, right? I tried to make it Thursday because it's supposed to be raining in California until Thursday. North Carolina until Thursday. But actually, I can maybe set up something with the mayor of Princeville. I don't know how big that is in North Carolina, but he actually might be able to make the meeting as well. And the ladies meeting with Marjorie Taylor. I forget all the fucking names. Too many I'm sorry. I'm sorry about this one. Too many names. Yeah. But I can set up a meeting with you guys and really help you guys get these students to actually and bring new blood into the People's Party. That's also a very powerful thing. And I'm also going to have a convention, a student convention in September, things like that. So we're going to make hot events for you guys to help promote you. You know, I love you guys. You know, I come here, you know, I've been swatting for you guys and fighting that real fight. You know what I mean? So
we appreciate you, Ed.
Yeah, that's what I can put in your hands.
Any
questions, I got you.
Definitely.
And you should record my questions because they're quality and they're good information.
Are you
Just
still
my
on?
opinion.
Are you still on Gilded?
No, there's some problems there.
Okay. All right.
Look,
Well, I'll
yeah.
find you.
Look, I'm going through a lot of unfairness. I could talk about it, but I think everybody here knows what's going on. Does everybody here not know what's going on? Matt, you know what's going on? I'm not going to bring you into this.
well, hold on. Let
help
me just Bob's got his hand up. Let me bring it in. But if you can see the chat, I'm going to send my email to you, and then just send me an email with that information.
Get on my mailing list, dgl7.com. You'll find out about everything.
Go ahead, Bob. You're on mute.
Ed, this is Bob Foxworth. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting you, or if I did, I forgot, but I'm an old man, so cut me some slack. I am in charge of building membership, overall in charge of building membership. It's up to everybody to do it. And I'd like to talk with you, membership for this People's Party of North Carolina, and I'd like to talk with you about some of the things I think I heard run by my ear in a hurry at some point. If you would like to do that, if you'd give me a phone number or a best way to get in touch with you, I'll give you a call.
Thanks, Bob. All right, I'm going to end the recording. Thank you guys so much. Feel free to hand back once this recording portion is stopped. I'm going to do that right now.